Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe, galaxy, and even down under. Let's go down under again and talk to Nicola, courtesy thereof, friend thereof, Christy Stichter. And as I've come to confess and understand, I've come to understand that you have had quite the journey through life so far. You've learned a lot of lessons along the way. You've been through a lot so far, and you have a lot of wisdom to share with the world. I'm going to basically give you the next hour and a half or so, basically turn the microphone over to Nicola and say that you've accomplished a lot. I've learned a little bit about you. I don't know everything about you, but I know that you're doing a lot of great stuff. So I'll mute my microphone.
Oh, okay.
And let me ask you one question. Who is Nicola? Go right ahead.
I think I'd say that I'm a survivor after all I've been through, as it didn't seem like I was going to make it. What happened was, back in 2003, I was getting symptoms where I thought I better go see my doctor, and I was starting to put on weight and I was very tired. And I also noticed that my peripheral vision was working as well. And I went to my GP, and I thought she was going to think the symptoms were very vague, but she didn't, thankfully, and she suggested I have a blood test. So I had the blood test, and then I went and saw her to get the results. And she said, she read the report to me, and the last line of the report said, one cannot discount a tumour on the pituitary gland. And she said to me, I don't think it's that, because your symptoms aren't too extreme. And she goes, but I will put you in contact with an endocrinologist, because it looks like you might have a hormone imbalance, and he'll be able to help you with that. Anyway, she then suggested I have an MRI scan so they could take a picture of the brain and see what was there. So I went and had the MRI scan, and then went and saw an endocrinologist. And while I was when I went to get the results from him, he said, yes, I had a tumour on the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland is like the size of a pea. Or if you look at the top part of your little finger, it's about that size, so quite small. And the tumour had already grown to the size of a golf ball, so it was really encompassing the pituitary gland. And so he said I'd never been to hospital before, and he started talking about neurosurgeons, and I was like, what? And he said, yes, I'll put you in contact with the best neurosurgeon in Adelaide who's used to doing pituitary gland tumours. And I said, okay. I'm still quite frightened. And what was really difficult was telling all my friends and family, because I'd tell people what was happening, and I'd say pituitary gland tumour, and so many people don't know where the pituitary gland is. It's located at the base of the brain, stem of the brain, and people thought it was in my shoulder. So I had to start saying brain tumour, and that was so dramatic, and so everyone thought I was dying. And then I went to the neurosurgeon, and he told me that the first step would be to have an operation. And he explained how that would be done. He said, well, firstly, when we first look at the tumour, we'll just use a microscope and go up the nose to do the operation, and go from there. And I said, okay. So before I knew it, I was going into surgery, and that's the way they did it, went up the nose. And then I woke up and my nose was full of wadding, like they put all this padding up there, so I had to breathe through my mouth. And then the nurse came around a couple of days later to pull out the wadding, and all this flush of air went up my nose. And then my neurosurgeon came around, and he told me that they were unable to get all of the tumour. He said, but we'll see what happens with that. He said there might be a likelihood that it might decrease by itself. And but unfortunately it didn't. So before I knew it, I went back to see him again because he asked me to, in a few months' time, to have another MRI scan so they could see what the tumour, what state the tumour was in and how much they had gotten removed. And then I went to see him about this MRI scan, and he said, oh, look, Nicola, there's quite an ample amount left, so we'd like to go in again. And I thought, oh, no. And so I went into hospital again, and he said, we'll do it the procedure the same way and go up the nose. So, yeah, he did. And then, I was only in the hospital for about a couple of days, whereas previously I'd been in there for 2 weeks. And so he did that. And he came around and saw me and said, we'll organise another MRI scan for you. So I had that. And then, he still wasn't happy with the amount of tumour left. And then so I went to see him again in a couple of months' time, and that's when he told me, oh, Nicola, I think we'll go in again, but this one is going to be different. We're going to go through your skull and do a craniotomy. So we'll open the skull. And I said, oh, my gosh. So he said this operation is going to be a lot more difficult, but it'll give the surgeons and myself a view of everything because your skull will be open. And he always said, this neurosurgeon, Mr. Peter Riley, he always said, I also want to be careful because the tumour is pressing up near your optic nerve and it's near your carotid artery. So we've got to be very careful because I always want to maintain your sight. Anyway, so I went and had this surgery, and yes, they went through my head and put titanium plates in there, and after that surgery, I was in recovery, and after about a week, they said, we're going to remove the staples that are in your head. So I said to the nurse, oh, can I speak to you while you're taking out the staples? Just to put my mind off what she was doing. And she said, yes, definitely. And stupidly asked, so how many staples do you think are in my head? And she goes, oh, about 50. Oh my gosh. And then, she was using a staple remover to take them out. And when she hit dried blood, that's when I could feel a bit of pain. And then, so when they were all out, and I went home to recover again, and then I was starting to feel quite well. And so I don't think I mentioned it, but I was a secondary school teacher. I taught history, English, and drama. And I felt like I needed a change because you just need to be revitalised. So I went to a new school to start teaching there, and one day I was driving home and I was going through this busy intersection, and all of a sudden my vision went blurry, and it was only because I was behind a big red truck that I managed to stay in the lane. And as soon as I got through the intersection, I just turned down the first side street I could and just had to sit in the car and wait and hope that my vision would come back clearer. And then to get home, I just went through all the back streets I could, and the vision was clearer. So I thought, I better tell my neurosurgeon. So I rang him the next day and told him, and he wanted to organise another MRI scan. So I went and saw him, and he said, oh, Nicola, I'm going to have to tell you something. And I said, oh, what? And he said, I think we're going to have to do operation 4. And I thought, oh my gosh. And then he said, oh, and there's some other information. I won't be able to do the operation because I'm retiring. And I had relied on him so much because he was the most beautiful surgeon. He always yeah, was comforting and took a lot of interest in me as a person. And, yes, and then he told me who I was going to have. And I'd met this other surgeon before who was extremely arrogant. And, yeah, so I went into hospital for the fourth operation. And this operation was the worst. I had so many complications. I had brain bleeds. And when I came out of surgery, my sister told me all this when I got home. When I got out of surgery, I had to go into a coma. And yeah, I ended up being in hospital for 1 year. And then also then I went on to, after the hospital, they put me in rehabilitation medical clinics for 8 months. So I didn't get home for 20 months. And the other thing with this operation was that one of the doctors said to my mother, oh, look, we're really worried about her short-term memory. So when you're talking to Nicola, can you say words at the start and then ask her what those words were later on, a bit later? And Mum said, okay. And Mum said that wasn't working. So Mum started writing words on paper and showing me them. And she said, the next minute I shook my head and said, can't see, can't see. And then this other doctor said to my mother, oh, I wouldn't bother writing anything on paper. Weren't you told her optic nerve was cut during surgery? She's now totally blind. And Mum said they were so shocked. And my sister said, right, we're going to go see that surgeon. And he just kept saying, well, there was nothing much else I could do. But there was still tumour remaining, so it's not as if he got all of it. Anyway, after that, I had to go see this other surgeon who I named, because I've written a book about all this, and I named him in the book Dr. Adler. That's not his real name, but I thought it was a good shortage for Adolf Hitler, because that's what I thought of him. Because when I went to see him, he then told me, oh, look, we've operated 4 times now, so we're not going to do it again. And I said, I thought, phew. But then he said, he followed that with, oh, so what we've decided to do is put you on a trial chemotherapy tablet. And immediately I related chemotherapy to cancer, and my tumour had always been diagnosed as benign. So I thought, what the world? So I said to him, so what do you expect the chemotherapy to do? And his answer was, oh, it'll buy you some more time. Yes, buy you some more time. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to let you get away with that. So I said, oh, okay. So I get the nails ready for my coffin next week, next month, or next year? And my sister was at the appointment and she said the look on his face was, I didn't expect you to say that. So his reply to that to me was, oh, you have to ask your maker that one. Yes, ask your maker. And under my breath I wanted to say, I'll ask my maker why he made you a neurosurgeon. Jeez. So I had no empathy and no understanding. So, yeah, I left there thinking, oh, well. Yeah, so I was put on to this really great oncologist. And in between, I also had radiotherapy to try and shrink the tumour more, but that didn't work. Anyway, I went to the oncologist and he gave me the chemotherapy. And lucky it was, in the form of a tablet, because it was a trial one that they were trying to get onto the market. And, and thankfully it worked really well. I took it for about a year and I didn't lose any of my hair. And I said to my oncologist, I haven't lost any hair. And he goes, yes, I know. He goes, and that's a regular, like a common side effect. And he said, so I don't know what's happening. And I went, oh, phew. Because I thought I had this vision of having to go buy wigs or work out what to do in my, with my hair and things like that. And, so after that, I, eventually went back to school and worked part-time for a while because I was still quite tired and things. But, and then it was all dealing with the blindness, and you don't, when you've got sight, you don't realize how much you rely on it. And I had to really be careful with my balance. But one of the blind organizations in Adelaide, came to my house 4 times a week and, would help me use the cane, and also, teach me ways of doing different things, like using the microwave. And they used a lot of, stickers to put on buttons to help me, like, Velcro stickers, so I could feel it to know, because they knew I still wanted my independence. So, like, for example, they said if you want to use the television, they put, a Velcro button on the on and off switch, and then on the channels up and down and things like that, and then just help me with all the different things that were available. And I also found that, because at the start, when my sister was still living with me, each day she would get out all my clothes to see what I wanted to wear and lay them out for me. But like I said, you really want your independence. So I said to the blind organisation, I said, oh, is there anything that you could use to help you work out clothes? And yeah, there's this device. I'm not sure if it's available in America, but there's a device called the Pen Friend. And what it is it's a sticker, but the actual Pen Friend is like a microphone. And what you do is put the microphone on the sticker and then record what is on, say, the coat hanger. So the sticker's on the coat hanger, and you might record blue pair of pants. And then each time you put the microphone on there and push the button, it'll say blue pair of pants. So you know that's what's on it. You just have to be careful, make sure you put those blue pair of pants on the right coat hanger. Otherwise, who knows what you could be wearing. Yeah, so I've found that's really helped with the Pen Friend. And they've even made the stickers able to be washed and still be used, so you don't have to redo it all the time. But initially, to set it up, you need someone with sight to help you. But you can put it on packets and things like that. And also learn how to use the computer. I use an audio screen reader. So on that is so each time you touch a key, it'll tell you what you're touching. And then I was able to start emailing my friends, and people thought I was dictating it to someone like my sister. And I said, no, my sister loves me, but not that much. And I said, and you'd be getting very short emails like, hi, how are you? I'm well. Bye. Anyway, so I've learned all the computer well, and I've got a tech person who helps me, who's used to using screen readers and working with the blind. So that's been really good. And I've also found there are devices on the market not made for the blind, but can still be used by the blind. Like I use something called OptiGrill by Tefal, and what it does is help you cook meat. So what you do is heat it up. You've got to be very careful because it's very hot. And then you just push a button on there of what meat you want to cook. And it could be poultry, it could be sausages, could be some steak. And then when it's ready, it'll beep and it'll tell you to put the whatever you're cooking in there. And then what it does is it weighs it, and then at every point it'll beep to tell you what it's up to. So the first beep is medium rare. So if you want what you're cooking medium rare, that's when you stop it and take it out. And then it goes to medium, and then it goes to fully cooked, and then this signal comes on, a different tune to let you know. Because a friend of mine who's just vision impaired, she firstly thought I could use it, but she said, you've got to look at the light that comes on that indicates. And then I said, but I can't do that because I can't see anything, no light, no shade. And she said, oh, okay. She goes, well, I'll try using it with my eyes shut and see if the beeps help. And thankfully they did. Yeah, so that's helped me be more independent by being able to do that sort of cooking. And because my sister then moved out, so I live in my house by myself now. So that was, got to be pressure. But I use a lot of support workers too. Like a support worker will take me grocery shopping. And, so I just type up a list and, print it off and then, of what we were going to get. And then, what I found works out well was holding onto the trolley myself, and then the support worker goes to the end of the trolley and then she directs the trolley and she'll say out loud, well, we're going left now, we're going right. And she'll say what aisle we're going down. So that's been really good. And, I've managed to survive all this, and I'm just so thankful that, I also put in the book that I went overseas when I had my sight and did lots of different things when I had my sight, and I really miss teaching now because I haven't gotten back into it. And, it's just a total life change and just adapting to it. But, and I've also tried to be involved in the blind organisations, the counsellor, one of the counsellors there, when she has people she's spoken to who their vision is deteriorating gradually, so and they're really fearful of when they're not going to be able to see. So she asked me if she could use me as an example, and if someone who's lost their sight totally but is still able to live by themselves and do things like that. And she asked me if I could speak to them and just, give them some encouragement and things like that. So I've done a few sessions with people like that to help them out. And, and I also tell them about all the things available. Like here in Australia, I don't know if over there they have this, but we have a companion card. So that means wherever, at certain places you go to, you get 2 tickets for the price of 1. So it could be a concert or a sporting event or even the theatre. So I've been using that too. And we're lucky too, at some sessions at the theatre, they let the blind people in earlier, like half an hour before the theatre play starts. And in that time, they give you an outline of what the play's about, and then even bring some of the actors out for you to speak to. And if there's props, they pass them around for you to touch. And one of the ones I went to, the stage manager even came up to me and asked me if I'd like a walk around the stage. And she explained everything that was on the stage to me, which was really good. So there's a lot available that thankfully we can use. And because, as I said, I used to be an English teacher, I was an avid reader, and I immediately thought, oh gosh, there goes reading. I didn't realize how many audio books are out there now, because the blind organisation said if I really wanted to, I could try to learn how to use Braille, but they said because you used to be an English teacher, there's really not a lot of point. And they said, and because there's so much audio around, and they said, and also as you get older, your fingers aren't as sensitive anymore, so you might find it difficult to fill the dots. That's about it, I think. Oh, and I got through all this because I'm so lucky. I've got so many supportive friends and family, who still, like my friends, still take me out for a coffee or a meal, and they're really good. Like they don't, like when I get my say it's for lunch, and when their lunch arrives, what they'll do is ask me, oh, Nicola, do you want me to help you cut that up? Or like they won't just assume and just immediately think, oh, she can't do that. They'll ask me and always, make sure I'm okay and take me to the toilet and things like that, or guide me there. And, yes, I've been very fortunate that way. But in the book, I also talk about living life to the fullest, and also there's always an alternative. You can't think you're defeated straight away. And I'm trying to be as positive as ever. And because especially in the medical clinics, some of the nurses were, so terrible to me. Well, for example, I had one nurse come in to give me my meal, and she put the plate on the table, and I heard her walk out, and I said, excuse me. And she said, yes. And I said, so what's on the plate? There was dead silence followed, and I thought, oh no. So I thought, oh, what I'll let her know is that what the other nurses tend to do is make out the plate is a clock face. So at midnight there might be a roll, and at 1 o'clock some lettuce or something. So I told her this. I said, went around the plate and made it up. And then I said to her, then I heard her walking out again. I said, so excuse me. And she goes, yeah. I said, so what's on the plate? And I was astounded by her response. She just laughed and went, food. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and so many times I pushed the buzzer and no one would come to help me. And I really needed that help to, get to the toilet or find my bearings, and oh geez. Yeah, so but while I was writing my book, I didn't want to make that a focus of me whinging about the nurses and some of the treatment. But so I think I said after the girl with the clock plate, the plate being a clock, I said, or maybe she couldn't relate to that age and was only into digital. But so and I was on so much medication that I was starting to hallucinate and have vivid dreams that I thought were real. And I had this dream that my sister and I went to Japan, and my sister came in to visit me, and I said, wasn't Japan great? And she's like, what? And then I was telling her all about our trip, and she's going, Nick, you didn't go to Japan. I went, oh, geez. And then I'll leave it to you if you want to read the book. I had this dream that I went to this concert and met the one and only George Michael, and yeah, geez. And he called me up on stage in the dream, and then met him backstage. Oh, geez. Because I've always been a big George Michael fan. And so it was so funny. So I outline all that in the book because it was so vivid. And my sister's going, oh my gosh, they must have thought I'd gone crazy, honestly. But yes, I also think you should just treasure the most important parts of your life and really try to live your life to the fullest, no matter what has occurred to you. And most importantly, you never know what you can get through until you're faced with it. And that's what I learnt. Because if anyone had told me that I was going to go through this, I wouldn't have thought I would survive. But thankfully I have. And I'm here to talk to you and, tell my story.
And I'm here to tell you that my name's Aaron's Opinion. And Christy Stickter, the Australia Embassy of Aaron's Opinion, was right. And I was right. That was an incredible story. And it's true. There are 2 lessons. And I want each and every listener out there to absorb this wisdom. You've learned many lessons in your life, but there are 2 lessons that are really good ones. This is an opinion show, as you can tell by the title. I'm going to give 2 opinions, but you might think they're facts. Lesson number 1, be appreciative. Lesson number 2, it might just save your life to be humble. If that surgeon was a good surgeon, he would have swallowed his pride and been humble. And this is a lesson I've had to learn throughout my life. Is that truly the greatest strength that any person can have, especially if you want to be successful, is humility. The courage to say, I don't know. I do not have that information. You'd be surprised to know how many people in America, and we'll call America up over. I don't know why we call it that. I still haven't figured out why we call Australia down under. Down under what? If you stretch the map out of a map of the earth, or if you spin the globe, it's not under anything. It's just south. Under what? I don't know. I always give the Australian people a hard time about that. Um, the greatest part of the story is your resilience to understand. Excuse me one second, as I fight a cold here. The greatest part of your story is that you clearly understand how to overcome things, and that's a treasure. Your ability and willingness to overcome. The problem is, Nicola,
Yes.
you're not the first person to tell me a story similar to yours. Okay. Unfortunately, and this is very disturbing, a lot of people are hurt or can be hurt during a medical procedure. In my opinion, this is why we need to avoid surgeries. Because even if the doctor is humble and a great doctor, it does not guarantee that nothing will go wrong. And this is a big problem, a big problem. I think you're very right that you have to be appreciative and overcome things and enjoy life as it comes your way. A lot of times people would ask me, why are we here on earth in the first place? The first good answer is, I don't know. The second good answer is, I think we're here to learn things. And then people would ask me, well, what would happen when we pass away? And I say, well, you keep learning. So I think that's only my opinion, but I think that our existence is about learning. And I think that's what you have truly exemplified, is the importance of learning and your love for learning. By the way, I love talking about history. You could talk to me about history for 12 hours and I would be so happy. What are three things? Now, I've never been to Australia. My father's been there on business. He complained about the flight. He said the flight was very long. That's all I've heard about the place. It doesn't matter where in the world you want to start. If you want to end up in Australia, the flight is so long. It's almost unbearable, even in a good aircraft. It's almost an unbearable amount of time. But what are some things that you can tell me, or what are three things that you can tell me about the history of Adelaide? And who's Adelaide? And what does Adelaide mean, by the way? I'm sure you know.
Adelaide's the capital of South Australia. And, I think it was, because of our strong connection to Britain, it was named after Queen Adelaide.
Ah, okay. There was a queen, so it was a person named Adelaide. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, an American, okay, I'm glad you know, but an American would have never known that. So, what time period was Queen Adelaide in, like, reigning over the kingdom of England, UK? What years are we talking?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Not
That's
sure.
very interesting. Yeah. But you're sure it was after a queen, after a woman named Adelaide?
Yeah. I'm sure Queen Adelaide. Yeah. Jeez.
I see.
Yeah, we're a very multicultural society. And South Australia was the only colony that was not started with the convicts coming from England. We're a free settler state.
Oh, you took that joke away from me. Oh, Nicola.
Sorry. Sorry.
I was just about to complain about that. Oh, because the joke about all Australians are criminals, except
okay.
That famous joke. Oh, everybody's a little sketchy in Australia. They all descend from pretty questionable people.
Oh, jeez.
Probably those doctors that you had, especially that arrogant doctor. He probably descended from arrogant criminals from England or some such.
Jeez.
I'm sure if you looked up that history of that person, not that you're going to or want to, I'm sure if you looked it up, you would realize, this guy descended from some weird people in England, probably.
Yes, and I used to teach Aboriginal studies, which were the indigenous people that were here.
So let's kind of break it down for American people that are a little less versed as we might be. So you used words there. So Aboriginal it's not a bad word, but it's a word that we wouldn't really say that in the Americas. We would say First Nation.
We've used that too. And we say Australian Aboriginal person. You don't say Aborigine because Aborigine is the origin of any people that first started any country.
Right. So the theory goes, as far as I know, that humans came to Australia millions and millions of years ago on rafts. The theory is quite bizarre and quite, well, speaking of
Mm,
treacherous, something to overcome in life would have been quite terrifying. They apparently were
mm,
flooded out of their homeland in what was, I think, Southeast Asia, what would probably be modern day Indonesia
mm,
or Bali or places like that of
mm,
today. And they somehow knew to get onto boats and they pushed the boat out into the water and they rode on the boat and somehow they survived and a few of them lived
mm,
and they landed on land and they said, "Oh,
mm,
why are all these weird animals here? Where am I?" And those are the things that went
mm,
off and they realized, "Oh, this is weird." That's how people got to the place in the first place. At least that's the
mm.
theory. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you know about the First Nations people of Australia? You're very versed in it. Tell us.
Oh, yeah, as people probably heard, Australia's a very harsh climate. And, yeah, but they managed to, work the land and used all the grew vegetation, and they had the mindset that what they wouldn't exhaust the area, they would move on. It's just before that area would be not fertile anymore because they knew they'd come back around again and it'd be all right. And they learnt all about they call it the bush food and what was appropriate to eat. And yeah, and then also they had weaponry like spears to yeah, kill the animals that they needed to and to survive. And yeah, they're very knowledgeable, and they all had their different languages because
Oh,
there's all
sure.
different traditional groups around Australia. And yeah, and when I was teaching the subject, it was set up so that the students wouldn't learn about Aboriginal people just being in the classroom. They wanted you to interact with Aboriginal people as well. So, which was really good. So they suggested that you take the students out on a camp for 3 days. So I took them to this camp that was run by Aboriginal people, and Aboriginal guides would take us around and yeah, tell us all about the land, and just knew how knowledgeable they were. Like I remember when the guide just said, look up in the sky to my students, and they did. And he said, see how the pelicans are, flying anti-clockwise? And my students went, yes. And he goes, that means it's going to rain tomorrow. And all the girls, my students were going, yeah, right. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That's fun. No, I completely believe it. And birds are oftentimes
Oh,
seen as pests or stupid
oh, yeah,
or
yeah,
silly
yeah.
creatures, but that's not true. Birds are actually some of the
Mm.
most intellectually capable creatures to ever
Mm.
roam our planet. There's ridiculous crows, ravens. Ravens are
Ah.
ridiculously intelligent. Actually, as you
Mm.
well know, crows and ravens, as we call them in the Americas, can actually speak. They can actually speak if they're trained and taught.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Ah.
they're disturbingly intelligent creatures, actually.
Mm.
Quite creepy,
And
actually, how intelligent they are. Yeah.
a
Hmm.
very important event happened when I had my students at the camp one day. Was the Aboriginal guide came up to me and said, do you mind if we change the itinerary today? And I said, oh, okay, what do you want to do? And he said, I'm just going to invite you because they have this special service called a smoking ceremony. And he said, we're going to have a smoking ceremony today. He said, because we're getting bones from our ancestors back from all museums around the world where they'd been sent to. And he said, so that we want to welcome them back to their country.
That's so
And,
cool.
oh, it was, and
That's
like,
cool.
yeah,
Welcome the bones of the,
yeah,
that
yeah,
is so spiritual. That's really
yeah,
clever.
yeah. And, yeah. And then, like, we were about, I had about 20 students. We were the only white people there because all the Aboriginal people in the area came. And,
Right?
then they invited us to have lunch with them as well, and they
Hmm.
had this beautiful smoking ceremony. And I could never have taught this. One of my students said to me, "Oh, um, Miss Cat, I now I know what it feels like to be in the minority."
Hmm.
Oh, I
Sure.
could never, yeah, because I could never have taught her that. Jeez,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she really,
So the students were noticing that the First Nations people didn't look like them. They noticed that they look
Yeah.
different, they
Oh,
sound
yeah.
different, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
I'm going to ask kind of a question, and this is an ignorant question.
mm,
I'm a humble person. I'm a humble man
mm.
to admit when I don't know, and I don't know this. If a First Nations person from Australia like spoke to me, would I understand them if they spoke English, or would the English sound like totally different?
Oh no, no, yeah, they can speak English. They have a
Oh,
bit of a,
okay. Thank you. I didn't know
mm,
that. I wasn't quite sure.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, they've got a sing-song sort of tone to their voice sometimes, but yeah, they're easy to understand. But what you have to watch out for is they're not ones to look at you, like they don't have a lot of eye contact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, because
different culture, different social
yeah, yeah,
norms.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
mm,
That is painfully cool and painfully interesting. You know, we don't learn about that here in the United States nearly
mm.
as often. I
Oh
mean, we
yeah,
know
not
about the
away.
First Nations people and you learn about it, but very gently. And
Yeah.
many of the people who are of First Nations descent, actually don't necessarily know that they are. And very few of them still speak the
Oh,
ancient languages now. I mean, there are old people that
oh
can
yeah.
still speak the ancient languages and things, but it's not something that is readily well known in the
No.
Americas. Um, and it's very controversial, and actually that
Mm.
has a very deep history. And
Oh
quite
yeah.
frankly, it's not really a happy history. And you've you've
Mm.
been through enough. I don't think you want to start researching the history of First Nation
Mm.
people in the
Yeah,
Americas.
yeah.
Let me just put it this way. There's one word that defines it: bad. It was all a pretty bad experience for a lot of people,
Mm.
throughout history,
Yeah.
actually. When you really stop and intellectualize it all, and I'm sure you have, I'm
Mm.
sure you're
Yeah.
also spiritual and you've given time to think
Mm.
about your existence, when you really stop and think about it throughout history, mostly we as humanity, as people, most of our existence has been suffering, actually. We
Mm.
suffered for millions of years before we came to our
Mm.
relatively, uh, relatively complacent and relatively
Mm.
what's the word? Sedentary. That's voila, sedentary. Our relatively
Ah.
sedentary lifestyle that we're living
Mm.
today. That is all painfully interesting. Yeah, super
Yeah.
cool, super cool stuff. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
well,
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of the Aboriginal people, they never wrote down their language, so it was all verbal, and a lot of that
Yeah.
got lost. A lot of their traditional
And you know
language.
that I'm a bilingual guy, English, French, so I would love to
Ah,
be,
oh,
I would have loved that trip, man. I would have gone there and I would have asked them questions and I would have said, so how many
mm,
languages do you speak? Speak to me in your language. I would have loved
mm.
it. Loved to hear the ancient language. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it's wonderful.
Right.
But
Hmm.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. So now did you ever delve into foreign languages yourself when you were younger?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm from an Italian background, so
Oh yeah, I do remember that
yeah,
in the
yeah,
email
yeah,
chain.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I learned Italian, but only at school because we didn't speak it at home, even though my dad
That's
was
okay.
born
That's
in.
weird. That weird's weird.
Yeah,
That's real. That
yeah.
is weird. Yeah.
No,
Hmm.
only because my dad was born in Italy, but he's from southern Italy, and my
Hmm.
mum was born in Australia, but she's from the northern region, and their dialects are so different
That's true.
they couldn't communicate. So
They just had
that's
to
what,
come together with English. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
my other sisters never learnt it, so learnt Italian, so it was only me. And oh, when I was over in Italy, I'm trying to remember all the textbooks and trying to remember all the language that way because I'm
Right.
so I
Super
had
cool.
been practicing. Yeah.
There's still, because I'm a French speaker, there's still a island,
Ah,
one of the Italian islands, they still speak Gaulish, which, as you know, is the language that French would eventually or originate from.
ah.
So there's still people that can still speak Gaulish,
Oh
as in the language
wow.
of the Gauls. Yes. Yeah. They're
Mm.
old. They're old and they're Italian, and they live in like one of the islands in the ocean
Ah.
near Italy. It's really cool. It's super cool. Yeah.
Mm. At university, I did a course on French history, and
Hmm.
they followed France from the Revolution of 1749 all the way through to end of World War Two. It
Hmm.
was the best course ever, and the professor leading it was really passionate about France and all that. And oh, it was so amazing. And then the lecture was on at 9 in the morning and it was always packed. Like no one
Mm-hmm.
wanted to miss it because he was so good.
And
And
now was he French himself?
no, he wasn't,
Oh,
but he
that's
just had a
funny.
passion for yeah. And his wife used to always, he said she used to always dread us when he'd go to Paris because he'd go to all the secondhand shops and there'd be things from the French Revolution there and he'd have to buy it and they'd always come back with excess luggage.
That's cute.
Yeah,
That is cute.
yeah.
Yeah. There's all sorts of funny stories about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really, really good. And then you spent a lot of time also teaching English, right? You also have
Oh, yes,
a great
yes.
love for the English language too. Talk about
Yes,
that.
yes, I do. Especially, I used to read, I think because of my drama, I used to always read the class texts to no matter what year level, whether it was the final year or the year eights. And, yeah, because that's the way you could really make a book come to life. I remember, teaching Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck.
Absolutely. Great
And,
book. Great
and
movie.
yeah,
Great book.
yeah. And, yeah, the students get the book and look at the front cover and said, do we really have to read about these two old guys on the front? And I'm like, oh my God, because that was Lenny and George were on the front.
Yeah,
And then
indeed.
I start reading it, and as soon as you get to the dialogue, oh, the kids love it because I do Lenny's voice like, George, are we going to tend the rabbits? Tell me about that, George. And then,
Yeah.
yeah,
That,
yeah.
when you really stop and intellectualize that as an adult, you realize how
Mm.
poignantly disturbing that book actually is.
Oh, yes, it's
But
got,
children don't get
mm,
the emotion. And
oh,
now that
yeah.
I'm an adult, I think,
Mm,
correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah.
I think the actor in the famous film, and I'm sure there's been several interpretations on film. I think the
Mm.
actor, the name that is jumping out, Malkovich, right?
Oh, John Malkovich, yeah.
Him? Am I right? That one?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
John
the
Malkovich.
person who portrays Lenny, right?
Oh, yes, he does. Ah, he
Yeah.
does it so well,
The
but
reason why I remember that is the film is it's a ridiculously famous story, and that actor
oh,
is
yes.
ridiculously famous, and yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and there's so much discrimination in that book.
Well, that's what it's.
Like,
See, that's what they're
yeah,
trying to teach,
yeah.
but
Like
but the
even
pro.
even the things like
Mhm.
the only female on the farm isn't ever given a called a name. She's just known as Curly's wife, and
I vaguely remember. Yeah.
And the African American guy, which they don't want in the different cabins, and that older man, Candy, I think his name was, who was,
Hmm.
really old and, oh,
Right.
gee,
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, that was an interesting dynamic that as an adult,
Oh,
I
yeah.
understand what they're talking about
Yeah.
and why it's important for adults. But
Mm.
I think my grudge growing up was as a child, I never got it. So it was all just,
Ah,
in one
yeah.
ear out the other. I never
Oh,
really got
yeah.
it until I was an
Oh,
adult and I started to notice discrimination. You see, that's another segue. You don't
mm.
notice discrimination until you're an adult. When I
Oh,
was a child,
yeah.
I didn't notice. Just like
Mm.
there in Australia. When I was a child, I didn't notice. When I was a teenager, I didn't care. When I was in my
Mm.
20s, I really, really didn't care. And now that I'm in my
Mm.
30s, I care. And
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
thing. Is now I have the maturity now that I work and now that I do things independently now, I have the
Mm.
maturity to realize, I need to
Mm.
make sure that I understand what discrimination is, and I need to
Oh,
try
yes.
to overcome it. And I also need to try to understand. And again, like I said, circling back to you have your whole dynamic today. It's just such a beautiful story. The way you tie all these things together and paint the whole picture,
Mm.
your like I said, there's always going to be discrimination, but you have to have the
Mm.
humility to accept that there's always going to be
Yeah.
discrimination. There's to some extent.
Mm.
Like I said, you took the children out to see the First Nations people, and they said,
Mm.
oh, that person looks different from me. They don't look like me,
Mm.
right? That's
Yeah.
discrimination. Let me tell you, discrimination is a survival skill. Okay. If you
Oh,
can't tell, and this is going to come out as harsh, but if you can't tell who your kin are, right? Who your family are, you don't
mm.
survive.
Mm.
So until you start being able to tell the difference between recognizing people, then you can't live. So what I'm saying is discrimination, it's wrongful now. And I accept that and
Mm.
I understand and I agree it's wrongful, but
Mm.
it also has a place. It has a
Yeah.
place in our survival and our history and our dynamic as people. And that's a very subtle point. Absolutely.
Well, I always make sure I tell people what subjects I taught, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
say, and some reactions when I've said Aboriginal studies.
Right.
I told this man once, and he started laughing. He goes, "Oh, what you teaching that? Not much." Oh, and I felt saying, this is why we teach it, because it's people like you are uneducated and don't know how much they contribute.
And that's the thing too, that I've had to control myself with my anger that I have towards uneducated people. There are people, there are always going to be people who are just never going to get it. And some people are just going to be uneducated in Australia and America. You're going to have uneducated people that are just ignorant, belligerent.
Yeah.
That is, if you want to know, if somebody asks me, Aaron, what's the person that you really don't like? I say, well, I try the best I can. I do the very best I can to like people almost all the time. Okay. Actually, I think I'm lying a little. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Okay. I'm kind of a pessimistic guy. But if you really want to piss me off, if you want to get on my bad shoulder, make sure that you're A, arrogant, B, ignorant, C, uneducated. If you're those three things, I am not going to take you out for a beer. Okay?
No,
I am not going to like you.
No.
But what I do like in people is people who are humble, people who are people who are willing to learn, and most importantly, people who are willing to tell me, you know what, I don't know much about that, but can you teach me?
Yes,
people who are willing to actively learn, actively talk, be active, be dynamic. Your story, the way you told it, could have been perceived as one of the saddest stories we've heard here at Aaron's Opinion, or it will be perceived as one of the most positive. Because you're positive. You say, you know what? I'm just going to have the right attitude in life and find a way to never fully forget what the bad people did medically, but have the courage to say, well, I'm just going to, in some ways, in some odd way, I'm just going to have to forgive them a little bit so that I can be a lot better. You know, as we say, as the proverb goes, better to be better than to be bitter. You know,
and
which
also,
is easier said than done, of course.
Yeah, and it's also important to, I think you've got to face the challenges that come your way.
And carpe diem, and seize the day.
Yeah. Oh,
for sure. So speaking of transitions, so you published a book.
Oh,
now,
yes.
I've spoken to people who publish books, and I know actually a lot about it. Please tell me your book is on audible.com.
No, it's not.
What is with people publishing books and they're not on audible.com? We gotta do something here. Okay.
Well, the reason being, I mean, I don't know if I've checked with Audible, but there are some publishers who take 95% of the price. So you get left 5%. And, if the book's $20, you're not getting that much. And, so that's why I decided to self-publish. So I outlined everything. And then, it's available on the internet. You've just got to put in, I called my book, Can't Get You Out of My Head.
That's good.
And the reason being is because, when I had my first MRI, they put the radio on for you. And that song came on by Kylie Minogue. And I thought, oh my gosh, who would have thought that would have been what? Yeah, they couldn't get it out of my head. Jeez.
Right.
It's, I've got a website that has reviews of my book as well. And
right. But what if you're blind and you want to listen to it?
Oh yeah, I've got an audio version as well.
Okay. So is it like a digitized audio with AI audio or like a professional actor?
It was, someone from one of the blind organizations.
Okay, so somebody did professionally narrate it.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So
very, very interesting. I know someone in my podcast family here at Aaron's Opinion who would definitely be able to help you to get onto Audible if you wanted to and try to apply and you see, because that would help it to be listened to, downloaded all over the world, and then more people will continue to learn from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That is really interesting. And how long is it, and basically what does it cover?
What do you mean?
Well, in other words, what topics do you cover in your book? Sure.
Oh, I cover, from my first being diagnosed all the way through to all the operations. And then, like I said, I also put in what I'm yeah, what I'm glad I managed to do when I still had my sight, and
Mm-hmm.
also overcoming everything once I was blind, and yeah, the lessons in life that you learn and the philosophies, and yeah, trying to live your life to the fullest. And I think I even said, yeah, carpe diem, seize the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just got to and
Extremely,
then
yeah, sure,
yeah, also put in yeah, all the things like I talked about, the pen friend, and yeah, things
sure.
that are valuable for the blind, technology that's helping.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all really, really good. And have you tracked the downloads of your book to see what countries have read it and see how many reads you've gotten over the years?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm mainly I'm the one, it comes to me, that the
Hmm.
email comes to me when people order it. And I think I've sold about 200 now.
Okay.
But
Okay.
mainly just in Australia.
Hmm. I
Mm.
understand.
But,
Well, now that you're on a global podcast, no, it's not just going to be mainly Australia. It's going to be
I,
mainly all the countries. So,
mm,
so definitely get ready. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I've done
Is it
some
set up? Is
guests.
it at least is it set up in a way for you to make some profit though? If somebody downloads the audio, I mean, you should be paid for it. I mean, just
Oh,
saying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, not too much because I thought the reason why I was writing the book was to, help people out and hear my story, but I wasn't in there to make a profit type thing, but I wanted
Sure.
to cover the costs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. No, I
I've,
totally get that. I totally get that.
yeah. I've also done some, guest speaking at
Mm-hmm.
libraries and at schools. And recently what I did is also implement not only talking about my book, but I've said to the audience, I want you to close your eyes and think of everything you do, the activities you do during the day, and then let me know if you think you'd be able to do with them if you didn't have your sight, and just tell
Mm-hmm.
me and I'll tell you how I cope. And yeah, so I said this in this library, and then after about 5 minutes, this lady said, "Oh, Nicola, I don't even know how you managed to get out of bed."
Oh
And I
boy.
thought, oh no, I thought, gosh, I hope you don't never lose your sight. Jeez.
Yeah. Some people could never handle being blind. So to
Oh
some
no,
extent, it's like, oh, thank God you aren't blind because you couldn't handle it.
no, no, no.
Yeah. Some people are going to be like that and are just never going to get it. And this is
Yeah,
how,
yeah.
unfortunately, how they are. And I've learned to be a very constructive ignorer, to learn when to
Ah,
ignore behavior is also, but
mm,
that's a very subtle skill. It's also a very
mm.
precise skill of knowing at what moment to ignore someone's poor behavior.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, when we were talking about discrimination before, so many people, when they find out you're blind, they assume straight away, oh, so you use Braille and you've got a guide dog. Well, actually, no. What? That's not, you can't be blind then. I'm like, oh my gosh.
What about the sign language thing? That's an American joke. Oh, you're blind. Oh, no,
Oh.
we don't use sign language. That's a common one. A lot of American people think
Oh,
that blind people use sign language.
oh my gosh. No.
Okay, well, good.
Do you
Because
have that, what I spoke about? Like going to the theater early and,
no, no,
oh,
we have very little accommodation in the United States for things like that. You're
oh,
expected to, in American society, you're expected to just follow along, and not complain. And
oh,
America is not, is not as accommodating as it can be. America has
mm,
improved, but not as accommodating as possible, and that's
mm.
only my opinion. Right?
Yeah, you have audio description though on your
We do.
TV shows, don't
We
you?
certainly
Yeah,
do.
see.
Certainly do. And audiobooks from audible.com. That's why I was talking about
I,
Audible so much because I'm shocked that your book isn't
yeah.
already in the audible.com
Mm,
catalog. Um,
yeah,
because whether
yeah.
you make money or not, it's Audible is such a great product globally.
Oh, yes,
You know
isn't
who I
it?
talked to?
Yeah.
I talked to
Mm,
oh boy, now I'm blanking on now I'm blank
mm,
oh, I know who I talked to. Um you know Jeremy Opperman, right?
no.
No. He's one of the lead audio description people in South Africa. So I've spoken to a lot of
Oh,
South African people. Um,
okay.
yeah, yeah. We'll talk at the end of the conversation when we step off the recorder. We'll
Oh,
talk a little
okay.
bit more about that. But that's why I was asking
Mm.
so many questions about your WhatsApp and your socials and seeing how you could be
Oh,
connected with my community, that I run,
oh,
and things
okay.
like that. Yeah, yeah. And I understand if you were careful at first about not giving out information, which I do understand people are
Mm,
respectfully skeptical, which is good. So we'll talk about that in a minute,
mm,
in a few minutes. But no, I've had a lot of great conversation. Actually, it's fun because
mm.
Jeremy and he also loves history just like you do, and we
Oh,
went through a
mm,
whole history, what he knows about, the history of audio description and things like that, the
mm.
history of South Africa and the history of his people. And yeah, he went through,
Ah,
actually, we did a full like 3 hour, we did a 3 hours with him.
oh my gosh.
No, I'm not exaggerating. I did a 3 hour show
Mm.
with him. And then I said, thanks, Jeremy. Now I have to go to the doctor. So no, I'm not exaggerating. I did 3 hours. Then I ran into the car. My mother started driving. Okay, now it's time to go to the hospital. Okay, great, great. Well, how was the podcast?
Mm,
Well, good, but now we're going to a hospital. Oh, well, stop complaining.
mm.
But no, I recall that I did actually 3 hours with him where I did first hour and a
Mm.
half history of audio description. Pause it,
Oh,
save it,
wow.
take a breath. We took a
Mm.
bathroom break. 5 minutes later, we come back. Okay, let's talk about your family history for another hour and a half. Yeah, he's
Mm.
fascinating guy. Just
Mm.
as you are, by the way. But when you started talking about the audio description, I thought, oh wow, you probably know Jeremy Opperman. I'm shocked if you didn't.
Ah,
I've also had Lois Strahan. I've had her on
ah.
here. Yeah, yeah. Are those names ringing bells? Lois Strahan?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, when I read so many books and then you lose track of I love it when you read biographies that are read by the person themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
read, yeah, Whoopi Goldberg's recently
Ah,
and it's read by her and
interesting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. And then I read one about Tom Jones, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't read by him, but they used a probably an actor who had a Welsh accent, so it sounded like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Things
The
like that are
reason
good.
why the reason why they typically hire actors is because actors know how to narrate and authors don't
Oh
always know how
yeah.
to narrate. That's why.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I agree with you. It can be good to hear an
yeah,
author's words out of their own mouth.
yeah.
But then again,
Makes them.
sometimes, but if you're, as we said at the beginning of the lesson today, if you're
Mm,
humble, you would say, I'd rather have an actor portray my
yes.
words. And that actually adds to the magic of it, actually, to some
Oh
extent.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
that can be.
nothing worse than a monotone voice, or you've got to have expression. And when you do, yeah, the dialogue, like I said, put some expression into
Have
it.
you been
And
on, speaking of name dropping great podcasts, because I am blessed with so many wonderful people around the Aaron's Opinion family.
mm,
Have you been on, Against the Odds?
no.
No? Oh, you would have been great on that thing. They don't do the show anymore. The show has become something
Um,
else. It's done by a British man, a man from England who has that RP, that
mm.
perfect BBC accent, like exactly what
Ah,
BBC News sounds
yes.
like. He has this wise, soothing, I
Um,
mean, I
well,
can't even. He does such a good BBC accent. I can't even do it. Like I'm not going to try to put them to shame. I'm just not. But nobody
mm,
does that accent better than him. He was talking to me over email. He's like, Aaron, I got all these ideas, and it's wonderful.
mm,
But your whole story would have been perfect for Against the Odds.
mm.
Yeah. Again, we'll talk in a few minutes. But once we get a little
Oh
bit more
yeah, that'd be
acquainted, we'll
good.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Um, I can tell you, though, that all of this is absolutely fascinating. So, when you're not trying to educate people about your beautiful life, what are some of your
Mm.
favorite hobbies, favorite pastimes that you love to do?
Well, yes, like I said, I love reading, and
Sure.
yeah, and I've even found I'm not sure if you've heard of this website called Audio Vault, and
I've heard of it.
yeah, they have movies and TV shows that are all audio described. You just download them, and it's for free.
Mm-hmm.
There's no subscription or anything. And yes, what I firstly did was put movies I'd seen before to hear what the audio
Mm-hmm.
description was like. And I didn't realize I downloaded Point Break, the one with Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves.
Nope.
Hey?
No.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, gosh. Anyway, and I knew the name of Keanu Reeves' character, and I was
Hmm.
listening to it, and they said he puts his blonde hair behind his ear. And I thought, Keanu Reeves has dark hair, and I know in that movie he still had dark hair. And then my
Yeah.
sister said, "Oh, they did a redo of it, new version of it." And I went, "Oh my gosh,
Oh, like a remake, a
yeah,
re.
remake, yeah." And
You know
it,
what's funny about this though is, and I'm not going to name drop and I'm not going to say what it is, but you know what it is, and we're not going to say it. But a
ah,
particular company has been doing a lot of remakes that have been very controversial, and these
mm,
remakes, these
mm,
reboots, yeah, reboots as we call them here in the States,
ah,
they aren't as good as the real thing
oh yeah, no,
because nothing was as good as the
yeah,
first seed of inspiration.
yeah,
That's why. So you can do a
mm,
remake all you want. You can do remakes. I'm fine
yeah,
with it.
but
I'm fine with remakes. But if you do a
but
reboot, but you have to know if you're going to do a reboot, it's not going to be as good as the real thing.
ah,
And
mm,
people forget that. So that's a very interesting thing that
yeah,
they do reboots and things like that. I don't know. It's the same type of thing that I would say about music. You know, you can do a cover, but don't do a complete rewrite because
mm,
if songs are good, they're
yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
You know,
but yeah,
if it was perfect in 1955, it's perfect
mm,
because it's still
no,
perfect. If it's perfectly written, it's
yeah,
perfect.
mm,
You know, yeah.
jeez,
Yeah.
gosh, but
That's really good. Have you been over here? Have you been over here up over where I am?
no,
No.
no,
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, that is deeply fascinating stuff. Truly is absolutely. So you know, Nicola, I don't know what the Aaron's opinion, the as I'd like to call her now, the ambassador, Australia's ambassador to Aaron's opinion, Christy
no,
Stichter, has
yeah,
told you, but I'm sure you do have a lot of questions about my life. And in the remaining time, roughly 10, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, really, however you like, what are some questions you really want to know about Aaron Richmond and Aaron's opinion? And when I tell you that this
mm,
is explicit, marked as explicit for adults, you can get all the way under my skin. I mean, you can
mm.
ask what you really want to know. What do you really want to know about me?
So you went on to study. Have you got a degree in teaching or?
So what happened was I completed
Yeah.
my studies as a undergraduate in
Ah.
international relations.
Mm,
One moment.
mm,
I I
mm,
soon discovered following my graduation,
mm.
I soon discovered that I did not have the connections to actually get a job in the
Oh.
public, and I needed to make my own way. And I
Mm,
thought, well, what do I really enjoy? Well, if you haven't noticed,
mm.
would you guess? I love talking. I can't shut up, and I love
Yeah.
to educate people. This is what makes me
Mm,
happy. It truly does, and it sounds weird.
mm,
I know. We've never met. You're older than me. You're from
mm.
Australia. But it
Yeah.
truly makes me feel better that I'm actually having a conversation with you.
Mm,
It's medicine for me. It truly is.
mm.
And you know, so that's what I want to do in life. Is I just want to teach people. I really do want to be a teacher, and that's what I
Mm.
do. I work for a couple online companies
Yeah.
providing English as a second language. Um,
Ah.
I don't really have many Australian students. I don't know why that is. Maybe they speak English there. I guess I don't know.
Yeah,
Supposedly,
yeah, yeah.
but I do have a lot of students from France, being that I'm a French speaker. I had
Ah.
several very interesting French students that
Mm.
you know, the students. It's online, so people come and go as they please, you know, over time.
Ah, okay.
But that's basically what I do. And then in 2020, I was doing a lot because you were wondering what the birth of Aaron's opinion was. In 2020 was a
Mm.
very serious year for all of us. It was a serious year for me.
Ah.
It was the last year of my guide dog's life. I was very stressed out. I was
Oh.
very depressed. I was still working, but
Mm.
completely overwhelmed emotionally dealing with the stress of the pandemic. Um,
Mm. Oh, yeah.
and um, and we were sitting at home somewhere, and I thought, you
Mm.
know, there's a lot of these blindness podcasts out there around the world, and
Mm.
they don't really like my opinion, and I have a
Ah.
problem with that because I'm not
Mm.
going to shut up, and I'm not going to stop telling
Ah.
my opinion, even if you don't like it.
Mm.
So I created an environment where you, Nicola, and Christy,
Mm.
and Decade, and so many other great
Oh.
Australians. Yeah, you know
Mm.
exactly what I'm talking about now. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious after this conversation. I'm curious who your Facebook friends are now. I'm sort of getting more suspicious about your fluency in social media. I'm suspicious about something. I think I'm going to decode something
Oh,
soon. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh,
gosh.
caught you. Caught you. I hate it when they do that. But no, we've had people from all over the world, the Americas, Europe, less from
Mm,
Europe though. Mostly I find that my guests now are from, countries in Africa, South Africa,
ah,
places in the Caribbean, France, of course,
mm,
the Americas.
mm,
Less though in Europe, significantly less European people
ah,
participate in the podcast space in the US,
mm,
significantly fewer.
mm,
I don't know what that's about. They're very reserved in
mm,
that part of the world. They're very insular
yeah,
and they communicate less with outsiders than people in developing countries.
mm,
I've noticed. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
That's very interesting. So basically, we've been going strong for 5 years, going stronger every day. And that's what we do here at
That's
Aaron's Opinion,
great.
giving you, Nicola, the chance to share your
Yeah,
story of
thank
strength.
you.
And that's what I want to do is keep sharing these stories so that 50 years
Mm,
from now, people will look
mm,
back and will say, hey,
mm,
there's a lot of history. And you know what? You can
mm.
still learn from this 50 years from now.
It's like, yeah.
And it'll
But
be
yeah,
so
thank,
magical to see people finding out that there was a long
mm,
history with Aaron's opinion and
mm,
he helped a lot of people and he did the best he could. And that was a
mm.
tremendously valuable resource for people.
Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity.
You're so welcome. Absolutely welcome. So
Mm.
what else do you want to know about me, by the way?
Oh, so did you find studying difficult? Like, were there a lot of because
Oh,
you're totally blind, aren't you?
well, I have usable vision, but yes, I call myself
Oh,
blind. Yes. Mm-hmm.
oh,
Right.
okay.
Right. Yeah.
Was
Hmm.
there yeah, any did you face many difficulties, like
Many,
things that weren't accessible?
many. And
Oh,
people who are ignorant and were
oh,
unwilling to
dear.
cooperate. And that was very disruptive. Ignorant
Mm.
people can be very disruptive people. So
Oh,
that's a
yes.
very prolific problem in the Americas is
Mm,
people being
mm,
ignorant and ignorant, belligerent, and unwilling to learn. And that really is a
mm.
problem. When someone's not willing to learn, it's okay to be
Yeah,
ignorant as
yeah,
long as
but
you say, hey, I don't know about that, but can you teach me?
mm,
That's
yeah.
a perfectly acceptable thing to say. But to be belligerent and to refuse to learn, that's a very
Mm.
common behavior of people.
Yeah, that's what I found with when I was teaching Aboriginal studies,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you do their history, and then we touched on the issues that Aboriginal people face,
Hmm.
and we were doing racism, and this was nearly at the start of the year, and one of the students put her hand up, and she said, because I got them to write on a piece of paper when they heard the name, like Aboriginal people, what things came into their head. And she put her hand up and she said the most racist things. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is she doing in this subject? And then, but by the end of the year, oh, it was amazing. She changed so much. She put her hand
Yeah.
up and she goes, can I tell you what happened to me the other day? It's about Aboriginal people. And I was cringing on the inside going, oh no. So I hadn't realized she'd changed that much. She goes, I was with a group of friends and we're walking down Rundle Mall and, one of the guys in the group said a derogatory words about the Aboriginal people on the side of the mall who were just sitting down. And she said, I don't know what came over me. She goes, but I said, don't you dare call them that term. They're
Right.
known as
Right.
Aboriginal people. And I
Right.
went,
And Aboriginal, by the way, is not appropriate, by the way. That offends American. You're allowed to say it,
oh,
but I'm not allowed to say it. So
oh,
that
okay.
it
Yeah,
is
see, we're not meant to say
right.
Aborigine, but we could say Australian Aboriginal people
You just
or
can't use the word. You
Indigenous.
can't use the word Aboriginal. You can't use that word in the
Oh,
Americas.
yeah.
It's not a slur, but it's very close. It's right on the cusp.
Oh, okay.
Because the reasoning
Mm,
is it's othering is why. Because it's
ah,
classifying a group of people into one lumped
mm,
othered is why that's
ah.
not appropriate. Um, but children
Mm.
learn the hard way that
Oh,
in
yes.
life there are ignorant people who use words that are not okay to say, and you just have to
Mm,
be mature and think,
mm,
okay, well that word's not in my vocab. I don't we don't use that word.
ah,
You,
mm.
you can be ignorant, you can think it inside your mind, but
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
but
to
don't,
take a deep
yeah.
breath and you just have to tell yourself, I'm just not going to say that.
Mm,
We don't use that word around here. That's not a word we use.
Okay.
you can try to say, okay, well that person's ignorant or that person doesn't know, but yes, and none of this is surprising. You know, people have to learn by making mistakes about that. People have to learn about difference, quite frankly, the hard way by making a mistake, by
Yes.
saying the word that you can't say,
Yeah,
and
well,
then yeah.
now I know it's that America, you don't say that.
So I
I didn't
actually
know.
know that because I was listening to another podcast, not for blind people, just one in general, and the podcast, whatever it was, they used that word. And just like at Aaron's Opinion, we have a way for the public to contact us. And apparently they were contacted. This other podcast was contacted by someone who said, hey, hello, you're not allowed to use that word. That word's a slur. That's derogatory. Please don't say that again. So
Okay.
that's how I came to know that word is not acceptable in the Americas. Now,
Ah,
for you, it might be acceptable, but Americans are not supposed to say that. We're supposed to
ah.
say First Nation. Or
Oh,
more precisely, if you know, it's most respectful to acknowledge the group of people that they are.
oh, yeah,
Now,
yeah.
let me give you an example. I don't know what they're called. I don't know what the First Nations people are called in Australia, but we have a group of people in America called Navajo, right? That's well known.
Ah,
You know, so let's say that you know someone's Navajo. Like if you know they're Navajo, you can
yes.
say, "Oh yeah,
You'd say that, yeah,
you're
yeah.
Navajo." Like it's okay to identify the person accurately, but it's not okay to
Yes.
other them. But teaching, I mean, this
Ah,
is something I had to learn as a teenager, like the hard way. This is something I had to
mm,
learn in my 20s. It's
mm,
very subtle and very delicate. That's why it's
ah,
hard to learn it. That's why you have to figure out what the difference
mm,
between
ah,
giving someone a name. There's a difference between naming somebody and othering somebody, but that difference is very subtle. It's very complicated.
ah,
Very, very complicated. You have been
mm,
a wealth of knowledge and kindness, and I just cannot thank you enough for one thing,
mm,
being kind to me and being tolerant about whatever technical problem we were having. Excuse me.
no, thank you.
But that just
Mm,
goes to show, you know, when you're humble and kind to people, they're willing
mm,
to work with you in this dynamic.
yeah, definitely.
All right. So one final question. I'll let you ask one more. So one more question to really make me
Ah,
sweat to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster.
mm.
What do you really want to know? Yeah.
So
What do you really want to know?
what do you use to really help you adapt to your sight not having the best sight?
Well, here's the thing. I was born
Mm,
blind. Okay.
yeah.
Luckily, I never had to deal with brain surgery. Okay.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And by the way, I've had many dreams in my life, but I've never dreamed I
No.
was in Japan. I've never
No,
had that
yeah.
problem.
I'm meeting George Michael.
Yeah. I never had those dreams.
Mm.
You know what? Be damned if I tell you this. If I have a dream that I'm in Japan tonight, I will be laughing so.
How
It'll
much?
be so
Mm.
weird if that
Yeah, yeah,
happens.
yeah. Jeez.
That'll be bizarre. I've never been to Japan, but apparently
And
you
okay.
have. But I've never been. I've never
Oh
been to
yeah,
Japan.
my dreams.
But when you stop and intellectually think about that, that's actually kind of a good dream. I mean, at least, you know,
Oh yeah.
there's worse things you could have dreamt than just going on a trip. I mean, that's kind of sweet, you know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got to tell you about that. I think that's kind of a gift from God. I think God is kind of giving you a little present saying, well,
Mm,
I don't think Nicola's going to make it to Japan, but let me
mm.
show her. So I
Yeah,
think that's kind
yeah.
of spiritual. I think that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of
Mm,
sweet, actually. Yeah.
mm. Oh, the George Michael one was amazing.
No, that one was something you came up with. Just
Yeah.
give God credit. Okay. God gave you the
Yeah, yeah,
Japan one.
yeah.
He didn't give you the George Michael guy. Okay. That's
Oh.
you. That's on you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Um,
Mm.
but you
Jeez.
know, I never had to deal with what I've had to deal with is, as I keep on
Mm.
saying, the ignorant people. You know,
Mm.
it's amazing. You know, and there's a joke and blind people like to joke around about it because it's
Yeah.
true. You know, when ignorant people say, "Oh, you're amazing. You're
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Oh my God, oh my God, you worked today.
Mm.
Oh my God, you wiped your ass today. Oh my God, you're
Mm.
amazing." No,
Mm.
no. You know what the
Yeah.
amazing thing is? How
Mm.
much of an influence being blind has on other people. See, that's
Mm.
othering. You see, that's othering. See, you put the
Ah.
blindness on other people and then they say,
Mm.
wow,
Wow,
you're
yeah.
amazing. Yes, yes, you are amazing
Mm.
because you are the first person to ever be affected by blindness in such a compelling way. That is definitely amazing. Now, my blind listeners are going to get it, and they're going to be laughing so hard, falling out of their chair. They're going to get the joke. It'll be interesting to see who truly gets that joke.
Oh,
Where can
you know
someone
what
get it? Yes, go ahead.
Oh, you know what this blind person, someone who was born blind, said to me? She said, "Oh, Nicola, I feel more sorry for you because you had vision." And I said, "Really?" And she goes, "Yes, because think about it. You never miss what you've never had."
Yeah, except for the difference between me and that person is I don't feel sorry for you and I don't feel sorry for me. Don't call me sorry. I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm saying it to be because you get it. Because you get it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to feel sorry for Nicola just because you had to overcome brain surgery. You know what? That's life. That's your life. I'm not going to be sorry. Don't be sorry about it. It's just happened. It's your own business. It's your own life. But but I'm not going to sit around and feel sorry for you because there was something wrong with your brain that was completely not your fault. Well, what good is that? What good is sorry when you can just get up and keep learning? And that's the lesson that I think, I also didn't share this link. It's nothing personal. I wasn't sure if you were going to have technical problems again. So I didn't share the link publicly to let the public come in and ask questions, but that's okay because soon you'll get more questions and soon we'll have a lot of people making comments about this great conversation and things like that. So anyway, as we do walk to the end of a beautiful conversation, so how can somebody get in touch with Nicola? How can they contact you if they want? Yeah.
Oh, well, there's, just need to go onto my website that I've got set up and put "Can't Get You Out of My Head" by Nicola Catalano. And then I've got a, email address on there, n.catalanowriter@gmail.com.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Nicola, don't hang up. Do not hang up.
Okay,
I want to talk to you off here. So,
okay, thank you.
But you're so welcome. But until then, though, I want to say, Nicola, thank you. Thank you to the world for having this great conversation. This was a lot of fun. We're going to get a lot of comments about this one, I can tell, and people are going to love this dynamic. This was fun. All right, everybody. As we say here at Aaron's Opinion, we say thank you for joining us. We will certainly be back soon. But until then, help one person today. Help 1 million people tomorrow.